prepared my talk. I first met Helen some 25 years ago at a conference in Toronto and invited her to my house to examine 2 boxes of documents, statistical data on South Asian women that someone from the federal government had sent me. I was full of self-doubt and criticism for not understanding this data, and thus, in the guise of a very generous soul, I offered this treasure trove to Helen. She was excited like me at first, but like me, she could make no sense of it. We both laughed at ourselves and at the officer that had palmed off this useless data on us. Subsequently, I met Helen several times at various conferences. We participated in panels together, reviewed each other's work, and offered comments. Feminist interest in racialized women can be dated to the early 1980s, and Helen was amongst the first to publish a very nice article on South Asian women. It was based on field work that she did here in Halifax, and it stood out in comparison with the mostly, at that time, anecdotal and experiential literature that was available. She went on to do some comparative work on South Asian women in Vancouver and Australia, and finally on citizenship, identity, and agency. In this time span, which covers almost 25 years, our understanding of gender, race, ethnicity, identity, voice, and authority has evolved and developed. At the present time, we have a substantial body of work on South Asian women, written by women whose identity is like that of Helen or like myself. In this lecture today, I problematize Helen's identity and also my own by referring to the social construction of identity, essentialism, subjectivity, voice, and authority. I differ from Helen in one important dimension. Her writing is based on fieldwork. Mine is qualitative, and lately it tends to be more like creative nonfiction. Although I know Helen's work well, I know little about her personally, except that she was an immigrant to Canada, her birthplace was Australia, and of course she was white and an academic. Helen's identity and choice of studying South Asian women raise questions that precede feminism. My identity as an insider-outsider to India and South Asia is also problematic. Women in India may dispute not only Helen's authority to speak on their behalf, but also my own. Yet, unlike the case of Helen, India clings to me, and the country continues to haunt my dreams. Its history and politics, myths and fables shadow me wherever I go. The fact and fiction of India, as many Canadians know it, contextualizes and explains to them where I come from, who I am, and the cultural baggage that I have brought with me. My digits are the perceptions and stories, real and imagined, that float around me and with whom I'm always shadow boxing. So first, what is identity? Identities arise in structured fields of relations and are a consequence and not the cause of conflicts. Cultural differences do not give rise to collective identities. Rather, differences of identity are in many ways prior to culture. Identity, writes Appiah, is both who we are and what we are. That is, it incorporates ascriptive criteria such as race, gender, sexuality, but also a belief system that is associated with them. Race, gender, religion, sexuality makes us, in the words of Ian Hacking, the kinds of persons that are brought into being, hand in hand with our invention of categories labeling them. Once labels are applied to people, ideas about people who fit the label come to have social and psychological effects. In particular, these ideas shape the way people conceive of themselves and their projects. White scholarship on colonized subjects has been criticized for its biases and for constructing their cultures and societies as the other. Such scholarship, it is alleged, has treated the colonized, subordinate, the disempowered culture, group, or society as an object of study and not as participating and engaged subjects. The truth about the other, documented in such writings, is now considered to be biased and ethnocentric. Critics of these accounts have questioned the privileged position of the author vis-a-vis the subject and have made explicit the power relations embedded in such scholarships. Questions have been raised about the right of the dominant group to speak on behalf of the disempowered, such as when males speak about females, whites about South Asians, heterosexuals about gays and lesbians. Disputing the authority of the powerful, the disempowered and the subordinate have struggled to give voice to their understanding and thus play a role in constructing knowledge. The scholarly discourse on South Asian women and race and racism in Canada is multidisciplinary and has been written by authors of diverse identities. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, identity became a significant concept in epistemology and a site of contestation. Initially, identity was viewed as comprising socially significant criteria such as race, gender, class, and sexuality, and their intersection in particular groups and individuals. Identity is not fixed, but is historically determined. And since it is constantly negotiated within societies and cultures, it is fluid and changing. Subjectivity encompasses conscious and